The first time Alexander Tremaine walked into Oxygen Pilates' studio, sweat beading on his forehead and his expensive suit jacket slung carelessly over one arm, Olivia Martinez knew he was different from her usual clients. Not because of his imposing 6'2" frame or the way his presence commanded attention, but because he looked completely out of place and utterly miserable. "Mr. Tremaine," Olivia approached him with a professional smile. "I'm Olivia, your instructor for today." Alex ran a hand through his dark hair, disheveled from what had clearly been a stressful day. "Look, this wasn't my idea. My assistant scheduled this because my doctor said I need to fix my back problems, but I'm not exactly the Pilates type." Olivia had heard similar protests before. As the owner of the studio and its lead instructor, she'd encountered plenty of reluctant clients, though few as immediately striking as Alexander Tremaine, CEO of Tremaine Shipping, whose company controlled half the East Coast's commercial ports. "Everyone says that their first time," she replied with a reassuring smile. "Let's just try one session, and if you hate it, you never have to come back." 90 minutes later, Alexander lay on his mat, staring at the ceiling, his designer workout clothes soaked through. "I think I might be dying," he groaned. Olivia laughed. "That's also what everyone says their first time, but you did well for a beginner. If this is doing well, I'd hate to see what struggling looks like." He sat up slowly, wincing. "How are you not even winded?" 7 years of teaching will do that." She handed him a towel. "Same time next week." Alex hesitated, looking around at the peaceful studio with its minimalist decor and soft lighting. Something about the space, or perhaps its instructor, made the outside world feel distant. "I'll be here." True to his word, Alexander returned the following Tuesday at precisely 7 p.m., this time dressed in proper athletic wear. And the Tuesday after that. And the one after that. What had started as a reluctant medical recommendation became the one appointment the notoriously punctual CEO never canceled, no matter how many board meetings or international calls competed for his attention. By his 6th session, Olivia had learned that Alex was 35, had built Tremaine Shipping from the remnants of his father's failing business into a billion-dollar enterprise, and despite his initial reluctance, was becoming surprisingly devoted to improving his form on the reformer machine. "Your posture's already improving," Olivia noted one evening as she adjusted his shoulders during a particularly challenging series. "Your body's starting to adapt." "My assistant says I'm less of a terror at the office, too," Alex admitted. "Apparently, I'm marginally more pleasant on Wednesdays." Olivia laughed, the sound echoing through the now empty studio. She'd started scheduling him as her last client of the day, giving him the privacy his high profile warranted. High praise indeed. "I'm not known for being the easiest boss," he acknowledged. "I'm shocked," Olivia deadpanned, earning a rare smile that transformed his usually serious face. As weeks turned to months, their sessions developed a comfortable rhythm. Alex would arrive precisely on time. They'd spend an hour focused on the exercises, and then, increasingly, they'd spend a few minutes chatting afterward. These brief conversations became something Olivia found herself looking forward to, a chance to glimpse the man behind the business mogul reputation. "You ever take a day off?" she asked one evening, noticing the dark circles under his eyes. "Says the woman who runs her own business," Alex countered, stretching his arms overhead. "Touché. But my studio closes on Sundays." "The shipping industry doesn't exactly observe weekends," he said. "Ships don't stop moving because it's Saturday." Olivia nodded, understanding the weight of responsibility he carried. As a small business owner, she knew the relentless pressure of having people depend on you, though on a much different scale. "Your form was off today," she observed, changing the subject. "Everything okay?" Alex hesitated, then shrugged. "Just dealing with a situation at our Rotterdam terminal. Nothing unusual." What he didn't mention was that the situation involved a potential $50 million loss, and that he'd come to Pilates straight from a heated conference call with Dutch customs officials. But for that 1 hour with Olivia, he'd managed to think about something other than impending disaster. On a rainy Thursday 3 months into their weekly sessions, Olivia received an unexpected call from Alex's assistant. "Mr. Tremaine would like to add a second weekly session if possible," the efficient voice informed her. "Fridays at 6 p.m. Olivia checked her schedule. Fridays at 6 was her personal practice time, the hour she used to develop new routines and work on her own technique. But the thought of seeing Alex twice a week made her agree before she'd fully considered it. When he arrived for his first Friday session, Alex seemed different, more relaxed in dark blue athletic, where rather than the compression shirts he typically wore. His hair was less perfectly styled, his expression less guarded. "No big meetings on Friday afternoons?" Olivia asked as they began warm-up stretches. "I've started blocking the calendar," he admitted. "These sessions, they help more than I expected." Olivia felt an unexpected flush of pleasure at his words. "I'm glad to hear it." Their Friday sessions developed a different character than the Tuesday ones, less formal somehow. Alex asked more questions about the mechanics of the movements, genuinely interested in understanding the principles behind what they were doing. Olivia found herself enjoying his analytical mind, the way he approached Pilates like a problem to be solved. "You know," she told him one Friday in late autumn, "most people don't need to understand exactly which muscle fiber is engaging during each movement." Alex looked up from where he was perfecting his plank position. "Is that your way of telling me to stop asking questions?" "Not at all. It's refreshing, actually. Most clients just want to be told what to do." "I get enough of that at work," he said with a small smile. "I prefer understanding why I'm torturing myself." After that session, standing in the empty studio as rain pattered against the windows, Alex lingered longer than usual. "Do you ever eat?" he asked abruptly. Olivia laughed. "Occasionally, yes. Food is somewhat essential." "I meant," he looked uncharacteristically flustered. "Would you like to get dinner now, with me?" The question hung between them, shifting the air in the studio. In that moment, Olivia became acutely aware that despite 3 months of twice-weekly sessions, this was the first time Alexander Tremaine had acknowledged that their relationship could extend beyond these walls. "I should shower first," she said finally. His smile was immediate and surprisingly boyish. "I can wait." They walked 3 blocks to a small Italian restaurant, the kind of neighborhood place with checkered tablecloths and wine bottles repurposed as candle holders. It was worlds away from the Michelin-starred establishments where Alex typically conducted business dinners, but as they settled into a corner table, he looked more at ease than Olivia had ever seen him. "I realized something today," Alex said as they studied their menus. "I know almost nothing about you despite spending 2 hours a week together." "What would you like to know?" Olivia asked, setting down her menu. "Everything," he answered with surprising sincerity, "but we can start with how you got into Pilates." Over pasta and a bottle of surprisingly good Chianti, Olivia told him about her dance background, the knee injury that ended her professional aspirations at 23, and how Pilates had not only helped her recover physically, but gave her a new direction. "I opened the studio 5 years ago," she explained. "It was terrifying, but I'd saved every penny from teaching at other people's studios." "That's impressive," Alex said, refilling her wine glass. "Most small businesses don't make it past the first year. Mine almost didn't." 6 months in, the building owner doubled the rent with no warning. "I nearly lost everything." Alex frowned. "That's predatory business practice." "It's Brooklyn real estate," Olivia shrugged, "but I found investors, moved to the current location, and actually ended up better off. The space is twice as large, which means I could hire 3 additional instructors." As she spoke about her business, Alex watched her with growing admiration. Here was someone who understood the risks and rewards of building something from nothing, albeit on a different scale than his global shipping enterprise. "Your turn," Olivia said, twirling pasta on her fork. How does someone end up running a shipping empire before 40? Alex's expression clouded slightly. Not by choice, initially. My father's company was failing when he died 10 years ago. I was 25, fresh out of business school, and suddenly responsible for 300 employees and a fleet of aging cargo ships. That's a lot of pressure for someone so young. It was sink or swim, he said, the maritime metaphor not lost on either of them. I chose to swim. Hard. Their conversation flowed easily, leaping from business to favorite books, travel disasters to childhood memories. When the restaurant began closing around them, both seemed surprised by how quickly the evening had passed. Standing outside in the cool night air, Alex hesitated before asking, "Can I walk you home?" Olivia nodded, suddenly feeling a flutter of nervousness that hadn't been present during their professional interactions. They walked slowly, the city quieter now, their shoulders occasionally brushing. "This is me," she said eventually, stopping before a converted brownstone. "Thanks for dinner." "Thanks for agreeing to it." Alex shifted, uncharacteristically uncertain. "I've wanted to ask you for weeks." "Why didn't you?" "Professional boundaries," he said with a small smile, "and I wasn't sure if you'd say yes." "Why wouldn't I?" "Because you've seen me at my least impressive, red-faced and unable to hold a proper plank." Olivia laughed. "Actually, I find your dedication quite impressive." In the soft glow of the streetlight, Alex's expression grew serious. "Olivia, would it be completely inappropriate if I kissed you right now?" Her heart quickened. "Completely," she murmured, already leaning toward him. When his lips met hers, gentle but certain, Olivia felt a spark of connection that had nothing to do with their professional relationship. His hand cupped her face, thumb tracing her cheekbone with unexpected tenderness. When they parted, Alex looked as affected as she felt. "I'd like to see you again," he said quietly. "Outside the studio." "I'd like that too." Their first official date was to the botanical garden, Alex having remembered Olivia mentioning her love of orchids during one of their post-session conversations. Their second was to a small theater production where Alex surprised her with his knowledge of contemporary dance. By their third date, a comfortable intimacy had developed between them that made it feel as though they'd known each other far longer than a few months. But as November turned to December, the realities of their different lives began to emerge. Alex's work schedule intensified with year-end obligations. Twice, he had to cancel plans at the last minute due to international shipping crises that couldn't wait. Olivia, preparing her studio for the January rush of resolution makers, found herself working longer hours as well. Even their Pilates sessions became less regular, with Alex's Tuesday appointment frequently rescheduled or missed entirely. Only their Friday sessions remained sacred, though sometimes Alex arrived looking so exhausted that Olivia modified their workout to focus on relaxation techniques rather than strength building. "I'm sorry," he told her one Friday in mid-December, after arriving 20 minutes late. "This end-of-year acquisition is consuming every waking moment." Olivia adjusted his form gently. "You don't need to apologize for doing your job, Alex. I do when it affects us." He met her eyes in the mirror. "I don't want you to think I'm not prioritizing you." The simple honesty in his voice touched her. Most men she dated had never acknowledged the impact of their work on a relationship, much less apologized for it. "I understand demanding work," she assured him. "My schedule gets crazy too, just maybe not billion-dollar acquisition crazy." Alex smiled, some of the tension leaving his shoulders. "Have dinner with me tomorrow. I promise to silence my phone and give you my undivided attention." That sounds perfect, but the next evening, as Olivia was closing the studio, her phone buzzed with a text from Alex. "Emergency board call. Might be an hour late, so sorry." An hour stretched to 2, and when he finally arrived at the restaurant looking harried and apologetic, Olivia had already ordered and was halfway through her meal. "I'm so sorry," he said, sliding into the seat across from her. "The Rotterdam situation escalated and it's okay," Olivia interrupted, though her tone suggested otherwise. These things happen. Alex studied her face. You're upset. I'm not upset, I'm readjusting my expectations. What does that mean? Olivia sighed. It means I'm trying to be realistic. You run a global company. Emergencies happen, I get that. But this is the third time in 2 weeks, and I'm starting to wonder if this is just what dating you looks like. Alex ran a hand through his hair, a gesture Olivia now recognized as a sign of genuine distress. It's not usually this bad. The acquisition, plus the Rotterdam issue, plus year-end reporting, it's the perfect storm. And what happens when the next perfect storm hits? He reached across the table, taking her hand. I'm trying, Olivia. I've never wanted to make something work as much as I want this to work. The raw honesty in his voice softened her frustration. I know, I do too. I just need to know that sometimes I'll win over the crisis of the day. You will, he promised. Starting now. True to his word, Alex silenced his phone and gave her his complete attention for the remainder of dinner. They talked about her plans to expand the studio's class offerings in the new year and his hopes to visit his grandmother in Seattle for Christmas. Walking to her apartment afterward, hand in hand through the chilly December evening, Alex suddenly said, "Come with me." Where? To Seattle for Christmas. Meet my grandmother. Olivia stopped walking. You want me to meet your family? We've only been dating a few weeks. 6 weeks, 2 days, Alex corrected with a smile. But I've known you for 4 months, and yes, I want you to meet the one family member whose opinion actually matters to me. The unexpected invitation touched Olivia deeply. What would your grandmother think about you bringing home a Pilates instructor instead of, I don't know, a corporate attorney or fellow CEO? Alex laughed. Grace Tremaine was a kindergarten teacher for 40 years. She'd be thrilled. I finally found someone with actual human skills instead of just business acumen. Olivia hesitated, thinking of her own holiday plans, which mainly involved a day off and take-out Chinese food. Her parents had moved to Arizona years ago, and she typically visited them in the less hectic month of January. I'd love to, she decided, but only if you're sure. Alex's kiss was answer enough. The Seattle trip marked a turning point in their relationship. Grace Tremaine, a sharp-witted 80-year-old with her grandson's penetrating gaze, took to Olivia immediately. Over 3 days in the cozy house where Alex had spent childhood summers, Olivia saw a different side of him, relaxed, playful, free from the weight of corporate responsibility. He's different with you, Grace observed one morning as they prepared breakfast together while Alex was out for a run. Lighter. He works too hard, Olivia said, whisking eggs, always has. Even as a boy, he carried the weight of the world. Grace measured coffee with practiced precision. His father wasn't an easy man to please. Thomas expected perfection and rarely acknowledged success. That explains a few things, Olivia murmured. Grace placed a weathered hand over Olivia's. In the 40 years I taught children, I learned that some people need to be reminded that they're worthy of love just as they are. Alexander is one of those people. The insight stayed with Olivia, helping her understand the driven, sometimes rigid man she was falling for. By the time they returned to New York after the new year, something fundamental had shifted between them. The superficial getting-to-know-you phase had given way to deeper understanding and growing commitment. January brought new challenges. Olivia's studio filled with resolution makers, requiring longer hours and more of her attention. Alex's acquisition finally went through, necessitating trips to Dubai and Singapore that kept him away for nearly 2 weeks. But unlike their earlier struggles with competing schedules, they now approached these challenges as a team. Alex called every night, regardless of time differences. Olivia texted him encouraging messages before big meetings. When they were together, they made those moments count, whether it was a quick breakfast before work or a rare weekend day with nothing scheduled. In late February, after a particularly grueling week for both of them, Alex surprised Olivia by picking her up from the studio on Friday night. Pack a bag, he instructed. Warm clothes, nothing fancy. Where are we going? It's a surprise, but we'll be back Sunday night. 3 hours later, they arrived at a secluded cabin in the Catskills, surrounded by snow-covered pines and blissfully free of cell service. For 2 days, they hiked through snowy woods, cooked simple meals together, and spent hours talking by the fire. On Saturday evening, as they sat wrapped in blankets on the cabin's porch watching the sunset paint the snow-covered landscape in shades of pink and gold, Alex turned to Olivia with unexpected seriousness. "I need to tell you something," he began. Olivia felt a flutter of anxiety. In her experience, conversations that started this way rarely ended well. "Before I met you," Alex continued, "I had this very clear 5-year plan. Expand into Asian markets, double our fleet size, maybe consider taking the company public." "That sounds very structured," Olivia said cautiously. "It was. My whole life was structured around the company, and it worked. I was successful by every measurable standard." He paused. "But I was also lonely in a way I didn't even recognize until I wasn't anymore." Olivia's anxiety began to fade, replaced by something warmer. "You changed my 5-year plan," Alex said simply. "Now when I think about the future, it's not just about shipping routes and profit margins, it's about making space for a life with you in it." "Alex, I'm not proposing," he clarified quickly, a smile playing at his lips. "Not yet, anyway. I just wanted you to know that you matter more to me than the company, than any company." For a man who had built his identity around professional success, this was no small admission. Olivia understood the magnitude of what he was telling her. "Thank you for saying that," she said softly. "It means a lot, especially coming from a workaholic CEO who once told me he didn't have time for relationships." "I didn't have time for the wrong relationships," Alex corrected, pulling her closer. "For you, I'll always make time." As winter melted into spring, Alex and Olivia settled into a rhythm that accommodated both their demanding careers and their growing relationship. He still attended Pilates sessions twice weekly, though now as Olivia's partner rather than just her client. She occasionally accompanied him to business events, charming his colleagues with her warmth and intelligence. In May, when an opportunity arose to purchase the building that housed Oxygen Pilates, Olivia hesitated to mention it to Alex, not wanting him to think she was interested in his money or business connections. But when she finally did bring it up over dinner one night, his response surprised her. "I know the owner of that building," Alex said. "James Wilson. We serve on a nonprofit board together." "Of course you do," Olivia said with a laugh. "Let me guess, you can get me a special deal." Alex shook his head. "Actually, I was going to suggest that you meet with my real estate attorney. She could review the market value, help you negotiate fairly, make sure you're not being taken advantage of." He reached for her hand across the table. "I know you want to do this yourself, and you can. I'm just offering tools, not solutions." His understanding of her independence, his offer of support without taking over, meant more to Olivia than any grand gesture could have. With Alex's attorney's guidance, Olivia successfully negotiated the purchase of her building, securing a small business loan based on her studio's strong financial performance. The day she signed the papers, Alex surprised her with a small wrapped box. "A building-warming gift," he explained as she unwrapped it to find a vintage brass key on a simple chain. "It's beautiful," she said, holding it up. "It was the key to my first office," Alex told her. "The space was tiny, leaky, and probably violated several building codes. But it was mine, and it represented everything I was working for." He helped her fasten the necklace. "I thought you might understand the significance." Olivia kissed him, touched by the personal meaning behind the gift. "I do, thank you." As summer arrived, bringing with it the 1-year anniversary of their first Pilates session, Alex suggested they celebrate with a weekend in the Hamptons. Olivia agreed, though she insisted on teaching her Saturday morning classes first. "The studio won't collapse without you for one weekend," Alex teased as he helped her pack on Friday night. Says the man who makes his assistant promise to call if the market drops more than 2% while he's away, Olivia retorted, earning a sheepish grin. The beachfront property Alex had rented was breathtaking, a modern glass and cedar structure with panoramic ocean views and a private stretch of beach. As they walked along the shore that evening, waves lapping at their feet, Olivia reflected on the unexpected journey that had brought them here. "Did you ever think, that first day you walked into my studio looking miserable, that we'd end up here?" she asked. Alex laughed, the sound carrying across the empty beach. "I was mostly thinking about how much my back hurt and how I was going to fire my assistant for scheduling me for torture sessions. And now," he stopped walking, turning to face her as the setting sun cast golden light across her features. "Now I think it's the best thing she ever did for me." Pulling her close, Alex kissed her with a tenderness that still surprised her sometimes, given the hard-driving businessman the world saw. Later that night, after a dinner of fresh seafood on the deck overlooking the moonlit ocean, Alex seemed uncharacteristically nervous. "Let's walk down to the water," he suggested, taking her hand. The beach was silver in the moonlight, the rhythmic sound of waves creating a peaceful backdrop as they strolled barefoot along the edge of the water. "I have something to ask you," Alex said finally, stopping where the gentle surf could just reach their toes. Olivia's heart quickened as he turned to face her, taking both her hands in his. "1 year ago, you asked me to try just one Pilates session, and if I hated it, I never had to come back." His voice was steady but filled with emotion. "I didn't know then that you were offering me so much more than physical therapy. You showed me how to balance ambition with happiness, how to make space for joy alongside success." He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small velvet box. Opening it to reveal a stunning emerald-cut diamond set in platinum, he dropped to one knee in the wet sand. "Olivia Martinez, I love you more than I ever thought possible. Will you marry me?" Tears sprang to Olivia's eyes, her heart so full she could barely speak. "Yes," she managed finally. "Yes, Alexander Tremaine, I will absolutely marry you." As he slipped the ring onto her finger and stood to kiss her, waves crashed around their ankles, the ocean bearing witness to promises that would reshape both their futures. 1 year later, they married in the garden of Grace Tremaine's Seattle home, surrounded by a small gathering of close friends and family. Alex's groomsmen included his longtime COO and childhood friend, while Olivia's instructors from the studio served as her bridesmaids. For their honeymoon, they spent 3 weeks traveling through Italy, where Alex managed to go entire days without checking his email, a minor miracle. Olivia teased, and Olivia discovered a passion for Italian wines that would later inspire them to invest in a small vineyard in the Tuscany region. Upon their return to New York, they moved into a brownstone in Brooklyn, walking distance from Olivia's studio. Alex established a satellite office nearby, reducing his commute to Manhattan and allowing him more flexibility in his schedule. As they settled into married life, balancing 2 successful careers with their commitment to each other, they discovered that the lessons learned during those early Pilates sessions, patience, mindfulness, the importance of a strong foundation, served them well beyond the studio walls. 2 years after their wedding, they welcomed twin daughters, Grace and Alina, who inherited their father's determined focus and their mother's infectious laugh. The girls grew up understanding the value of hard work, watching their parents build businesses while prioritizing family time. On the twins' 5th birthday, as they celebrated with a party in the backyard of their Brooklyn home, Alex pulled Olivia aside for a moment of quiet amid the chaos. "You ever think about how different our lives would be if my doctor hadn't insisted on Pilates for my back problems?" he asked, watching their daughters chase bubbles across the lawn. Olivia leaned into his embrace. "Or if I hadn't scheduled you as my last client on Tuesdays? Or if I hadn't been so terrible at it that I needed extra sessions?" she laughed, the sound still his favorite after all these years. "I think you were terrible on purpose, just to spend more time with me." "A CEO never reveals his strategies," Alex said with mock seriousness before his expression softened. "But I'd gladly endure 1,000 plank poses for the life we've built." As they rejoined the party, hands linked and hearts full, both silently acknowledged the beautiful truth. Sometimes life's most meaningful journeys begin with a single step onto a Pilates mat and the courage to return week after week, building strength and connection one session at a time.